All right, good morning, everybody. We have a lot of folks that registered, so we're just going to let folks come in from the waiting room, and then we'll get started in about 45 seconds. All right, well, we're going to get started. Good morning, and everyone, welcome to today's webinar titled HB 7049 Public Notice Compliance. That's about as creative as we could get with a title, but just as background, I'm Eric Poole with FACTS, Institute for County Government. We are the training and education arm of the association, and among other offerings, we provide periodic webinars on a wide range of topics. Currently, we have over 60 different webinars that can be accessed on our website at no charge to you. I want to introduce our presenters today. They are Jack Seaton, he's president and CEO of Column, and Alex Lutz, who manages the Column Strategic Partnerships. Column is a FAC corporate partner based out of Miami. They are a venture-backed public benefit company whose mission is to make public information systems more valuable, beginning with public notices. And if you've registered for today's webinar, you probably know that in 2022, the legislature passed House Bill 7049 relating to how legal notices can be published by governmental agencies. This legislation was actually followed up by a 2021 law, HB 35. And so while some have questioned the wisdom of the new law and even some of its vague wording, the 2022 legislation did go into effect on January 1st, 2023. And to help us understand the ways in which some communities across our state can work with these new requirements, I am pleased to introduce Jake and Alex, and they're going to walk us through some of the mechanics and the operations of what Column does and how they're working with other communities across the state of Florida. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jake and Alex. Alex, thank you and welcome.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Eric. I will quickly share my screen up here so everybody can see what I'm seeing. Hello, everybody. It's really great to see you all. And just so you all know what to expect, I very much like to keep things pretty brief and get straight to the point. So I'll be giving a short presentation before we sort of open the floor to whatever questions that you all might have after hearing the information that's presented or questions that you came with. I'm sort of hoping that the engagement that we've seen around this issue, that folks are really interested into digging into it. So with that said, we are extremely excited to talk to you all today about what's going on with public notice in Florida. Before we go any farther, I think Eric did a nice job of summarizing, but I wanted to share a little bit more about Column, who we are and what we do. So to start, like Eric said, we are a Miami-based software company. Jake, our CEO, moved the company office to Miami just a little bit over a year ago when it seemed pretty clear that the laws around public notice were changing, and the public notice software that we had been building and iterating on over the last several years could make for the perfect solution to any of the sort of proposed changes. We also happen to be a public benefit corporation focused on making public information more valuable by providing our software platform, which is used by thousands of government officials and lawyers and citizens and newspapers to facilitate compliance with publication requirements. Beyond who we are as a company, we are a partner. We're a partner to hundreds of publishers across the country and thousands of customers who place their notices through our software. I wanted to just give a couple very specific call outs to some folks who have been exceptional partners here in Florida, and you can see some of them on the screen. Of course, the lovely folks who are helping us to host this webinar at the Florida Association of Counties. It's been incredible working with you all so far, and we're very excited to get this opportunity to meet some of the folks who are FAC members. We've also just recently announced our partnership with the Florida County Clerks and Comptrollers. I think we actually might have a few county clerks on here today. And so I just want to say thank you all for joining on either short notice, or if you found this by your own volition, we really appreciate you being here. We also have some folks from our county partners in attendance today in Brevard and Bay County, who've both decided to use Column to publish their public notices in the coming year. And finally, one of the things that really brought us here in the first place, which is our partnership with the Florida Press Association. And through that partnership, we were given the opportunity to become the statewide public notice database provider. And here's an image of sort of what that looks like. But like I mentioned, when we initially got this opportunity to build the statewide database of public notices in Florida, Jake moved the company headquarters down to Miami, and this really became our strategic focus. And just for context, all of the notices that are published in newspapers are required to be uploaded to this statewide repository in a searchable, compliant display site. So we took that opportunity and we built out a few customized features to make this both really set a high bar and meet all the requirements for the most recent public notice statute. And if you haven't been on the site, some of the things that you can do with it are search for notice content. You can filter by publication or location, or even by the type of notice that you're looking for. You can specify date ranges. And if you don't want to visit it repeatedly over and over again, but you still want your public notice information, you can sign up for email and text alerts about certain notices that you might want to be notified of at a frequency of your choice. But like Eric said, very specifically, the biggest reason that we're here is because of 2022's HB 7049, which rather unprecedentedly gave the counties of Florida the option to publish public notices within their county on their own website rather than in a newspaper of general circulation. And this is an incredibly exciting opportunity. And before I go into this, I want to note that neither Jake nor I practice law. So the intention of this slide and the information in this presentation is not necessarily to give direct legal advice, but rather just to call out that the bill has some intricacies that might make compliance vary slightly by county. So I know that a lot of you who are watching probably have questions about specific requirements, and I'm happy to list a few of them. But broadly, I really encourage you all to meet with us individually, since the law may affect different counties a bit differently. And just as one key point here, for counties who choose to publish notices on their own website rather than with the newspaper, they are taking on a pretty meaningful level of responsibility shift that was historically with the newspaper, especially if folks aren't familiar with the sort of the publishing side of the laws around public notice generally. And in this specific circumstance, the law, the HB 7049 specificities are intricate and sometimes interestingly worded. And the biggest thing is, if you all don't have the technology to back up those requirements, it can be very difficult to remain compliant. So I mentioned that HB 7049 simply introduces the option to publish notices on your own county website, which means that there are two predominant options for publishing notices and for working with Column to help you publish those notices. The first of those options is to continue placing notices with your newspaper of general circulation. Our workflow software was initially built for newspaper publishers to help them improve the customer experience and really ensure the compliant publication of print notices. As I mentioned before, we have over 350 newspapers who are partnered with us across the United States, and more than 12,000 government offices, citizens, and law firms who use Column to publish their notices. But this system, the software system, helps folks to submit all of their public notices through a guided online order entry system. It also organizes all of the public notice information within the app so that you all can see past notices. You can get updates in the app via email about current notices that maybe your notice is being published and you want to be notified about that. Or the newspaper might have an affidavit which they've submitted for your notice and you want to be notified of that. So all of the information related to your public notices are all stored in one central repository that you can access at any time and interface with the newspaper publisher through. So again, the first option for publishing your notices and working with Column is to continue publishing in newspapers through our software, and we can help to facilitate the publication of public notices in newspapers across the state of Florida. Now, the second option to continue publishing your notices is by using your county's website to publish those notices, and we can help you to facilitate that. Or as HB 7049 puts it, using a governmental agency's publicly accessible website. And I'm sure that you all can appreciate the language that's used there, and we can talk about specifically what that might mean. But in the most fundamental sense, it means that Column can help you all to host a compliant display site to publish the public notices on your county's website. And that website's required to have certain search and display features, as well as the need to link between government sites who might be using the county's website to publish their notices. The website is also required to have display durations for certain types of notices, which vary by a different type of notice, as well as a searchable archive of past notices up to a certain time threshold. One of the major features that I want to make sure that folks are aware of is the need to send first-class mail to citizens who request public notices that are published on the county's website to be sent to them through physical first-class mail. And that could sound like a rather scary and time-consuming proposition if a lot of the citizens decide they would like to request that service. However, we've built out a feature that automates this process for you while allowing counties to manage what that workflow looks like. The display site, which you can see on the right, is an example of what we've built for Brevard County. And it includes all of the requirements that I just listed and more, including searching and filtering functionality, as well as perpetual archivability and print and digital notification functionality. In addition, we've also provided them with workflow software that helps them to not only publish their own notices by leveraging automations to help make that process as smooth as possible, but also to enable them to publish notices for other governmental offices in their county. So if a municipality or a city needs to publish a notice, they can also submit their public notice to Brevard County's website for publication through Column. In this circumstance, the folks at Brevard County have control over what is published on their website and what is not. And we've also, importantly, provided them the option to continue publishing notices that they would like to in their local newspaper through using Column. So like I mentioned before, there are two options to continue publishing your notices and for working with Column, and they're not mutually exclusive. So if you decide to host your own county website, you can still continue to publish notices in newspapers, and you can do both by using the same Column software. One last key point around choosing the option to publish notices on your own website might come from a cost-saving perspective. Counties who choose to use Column to publish notices on their own county's publicly accessible website can offset the cost of doing so and even potentially generate revenue by publishing notices on behalf of other individuals and entities. And I'm just going to repeat that because I feel like it's extremely important that you all know that by using Column to publish notices on your county website, you all have the opportunity to turn what is typically a county's public expense into revenue. So I'd like to quickly run through what deciding to publish notices on their own website looks like for Brevard County. Previously, they had spent somewhere around $75,000 annually on the publication of public notices in their local newspapers. In addition to that, other government offices in Brevard County were also paying somewhere in the tens of thousands of dollars range to continue publishing their notices in local newspapers as well. In order to mitigate the cost impact, Brevard has partnered with us to help them publish their notices on their own publicly accessible website, which again, you can see on the right. And in addition to this, they're also preserving their option to place notices in newspapers through Column's streamlined software. In addition to those advantages, it also means that because Column is the statewide public notice database provider for Florida, we can also include the public notices published on Brevard County's website on the statewide public notice website. So effectively, by using Column, they are limiting employee time spent on publishing public notices, either through making calls or sending emails to their local newspaper, or if they had decided to go with a different provider who might not have specifically built public notice software, they may not be able to leverage the automations and the features that are built into our software that enable them to publish public notices extremely efficiently. And as I mentioned before, Brevard County is ensuring transparency by maintaining their options for publishing their public notices. They are hosting this publicly accessible display site on their website, in addition to having their notices published on the statewide public notice database, and they continue to have the option to also publish their notices in their local newspaper, all through Column's single software system. Now, I know that I went through quite a bit of information. I threw a lot of information out there rather quickly. This is sort of the 10,000-foot view. I like to first provide a really high-level overview before we get into the details, but the next steps here to get started are to start really getting into the details. So in a moment, I will put my contact information up on the screen. And please, I encourage you to reach out to me via email or by finding a time to meet using the QR code that'll be available on the screen. Afterwards, I would love to just get in a meeting with you all, get a better understanding of your vision and some of the particular circumstances in your county to make sure that we're providing you all with the best solutions and the ones that you might need. During that meeting, we can, of course, also walk through the software itself in a bit more depth. I'm happy to click around into the features, show you some of the things that are available, and most importantly, have you all ask lots of questions to make sure that it really fits your needs. And if it seems like a great fit, we'll provide a rollout plan and a training process to make sure that you all know exactly at what point things are going to happen and that you feel comfortable using the software going forward. Like I said, our mission is to make public information more valuable, and that starts by modernizing the public notice workflow. So here is, bring it up, my contact information so that you all can get in touch. I will leave it up on the screen here just for a moment or two because I know sometimes using that QR code can take a second, but generally that wraps it up for me. And now that you have all that information sort of under your belt, and I'm sure you all came with some thoughts and questions, I would love to open things up for a Q&A, and for that, I will pass things over to Jake.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jake Seaton. I'm the founder and CEO of Column, based here in lovely Miami, Florida. Happy to answer any questions you all might have. I'm looking forward to discussing.
Jake, there were some questions that you responded to in the Q&A. Do you want to just, not everyone is looking at that. Do you want to just maybe respond to that question and maybe some of the questions that you have had to answer with Brevard County and then perhaps with Bay County?
Sure. So the only one that I answered in the Q&A, we got the question of what steps does Column take to ensure that information submitted to our site isn't sold to third parties. So I think this is related to, let's say that a citizen signs up to receive email alerts or mailed alerts of notices that are being published on the county website. Column is hosting a registry of those signups that on behalf of the county. And what do we have that makes sure that we're not turning around and then selling those email addresses to third party or something? And the answer is just that we don't do that. And it's spelled out in our standard agreement that we're not going to be selling people's personally identified information.
Right.
The next question we got for local governments who have opted to go fully to online notices, how many citizens have requested to receive first-class mail notices, and has that increased the county's cost substantially? The short answer here is that we don't know yet. We have only just gone live with Brevard County and have not yet received any signups for mailed alerts. We know that it costs about a little over $1 an envelope to send first-class mail in compliance with the state statutes, and so that was a component of the quote that we provided to Brevard County. But we don't yet have information on what kind of expense that might be or how many people might sign up. So the next question that we just got from David Goldstein is, how did Brevard deal with the competitive procurement of Column service? Is Column a sole source for this service? And so I actually think Lois Bissot from Brevard County, whose last name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, is here and might be a person to reach out to ask that question. I believe that Brevard did receive more than one bid on this contract, and ultimately selected our platform for reasons that you would have to ask Lois. But they ran a process of upon needing to procure their own website, looking at the different software options that were available, and ultimately selecting Column. And so now at this point we have a standard software agreement that we've put in place with Bay County, and I believe Brevard was able to do it with a purchase order. So we have there's some infrastructure in place there.
And, in the presentation, you talked about it's an opportunity if a county elects to, one, not only save money by publishing on their own website, but perhaps generate revenue. And I know that's not probably a goal to make that an enterprise fund, but did Brevard or has anybody else kind of looked at that and said, okay, well, at least we can offset some of the infrastructure costs?
Yes, exactly. So at the very least, you could offset like a software as a service subscription that you might be paying to Column to host the website, through charging a little bit for third parties like municipalities, charter offices, maybe even law firms that are opting to publish their notice on the county website. And I think that has, in the conversations that we've been kind of the county's main objective is if they can make this a cost neutral thing. By doing that, that's a good option.
And without going too deep into the work that's being done in Brevard County, your slide says that they're preserving the option to publish in a newspaper. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Do they have a policy in place that says for this type of public notice, we're definitely going to use the website of the local newspaper?
Yeah, so at the risk of, again, we are not lawyers and there are a lot of intricacies to the bill, but there are still some categories of notice that will need to be published in the print newspaper by both the county as well as all of the municipalities and charter offices that may now be able to publish some of their notices on the statewide website. There may also be categories of notices that people want to publish in both places to try to get in front of as many people as possible. And so we want to make sure that we're able to provide a solution that meets all of those criteria. And that's part of why we've really focused on being integrated and partnered with as many of the newspapers in Florida as we can get to sign up to receive notices through this software. And so what we're hoping is that in Brevard County, whether it's a notice being published on the county website or a notice that needs to be submitted by the county or any of their government agencies to the newspapers in Brevard County, that they will be able to do that through one workflow solution used by every professional in the county that has to deal with the public notice process.
Great. I'm going to stop asking questions because a number of them are coming in through the Q&A. Do you want to, Jake, answer that? I guess the next one was from Mr. Allen.
The question
is,
is, some federal grants require nationwide advertisement. How would you go about meeting this requirement through Column if a county chose to continue using newspapers for advertisements? And so I think the answer to this question is that you can just use our software. So we want to get to a point where you can use Column to place a notice in any or all newspapers in the United States. And so if you have a federal grant requirement that has to be advertised nationwide, we'd like to get that down to one click via Column. For right now, you could use our software to place it in basically any paper in Florida. And that's true regardless of whether a county has decided to build a website with or without working with us. We got a question of who is responsible for mailing notices. Is it a Column employee? And so we've actually written some code that sends mail. So there are APIs out there that you can send a HTTP request to, and it will actually go through and print out a mailed envelope and send it to an address that you give it. And so when you click mail in Column, it actually just calls that API and programmatically automates all of that. So we don't have the employees that are having to lick or stamp or seal envelopes. It's all being done automatically. And that both reduces costs for everybody involved, but also makes it much more efficient. How long does the rollout process typically take? About a month. I think we moved forward with Brevard in, I want to say, I can't remember the exact date. I think it was in like late January, and we're just getting live here at the end of March. And then we just signed with Brevard County, I believe, today, and have an estimated go live date of May 1st. And there are two kind of components to that rollout process. One is the setup and creation of a county website, if that's something that you would like to create and designate. And then the second part, and the training of county staff on how to use the software to submit it to whatever combination of that website and local newspapers that you want to do. And then the second component is potentially the training and onboarding of those local municipalities, charter offices, law firms that you may want to have the option to place their notices on your website. Can you review again the website requirements related to sorting features and the length of time that notices must be kept on the website? Are these statutory requirements? I don't recall seeing it in the statute. So I think this, the kind of, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the requirements around, how long a notice needs to be on the county website, does it need to be permanently archived there, or and then how long does it actually need to show up, are a little bit ambiguous. That's something that we're still sort of feeling out and kind of trying to make sure that our software can support however a given county wants to display or publish their notice. As far as the statewide site that we host, as well as the display site that we can provide, that enables sorting and searching via keyword or date or location, or category. We actually have some machine learning that on the back end goes through the text of the different notices and says, this is a foreclosure notice, or this is a city ordinance, and then enables the user to select, I want to see all the city ordinances, and it will filter to that specific category. Could you speak a little bit more regarding Column's ability to automate or facilitate the mailed notices? So we have, we use an API called Lob, which is an API is an application programming interface. It's just basically another software company that our software talks to. And so, we can send that company an address as well as the content that needs to be mailed, and their software will programmatically print it out, put an envelope and mail it to that location. And so when let's say that we have a list of names and mailing addresses and frequency for people in your county that have requested to receive mailed envelopes, or a list of customers that need to get the affidavits of publication for the notices that they have submitted, we can automatically send that list of addresses as well as the content that they need to receive to this third-party API, which then prints out and mails the content that needs to be mailed to those addresses automatically. So that is a little bit more about how that works, but happy to answer any follow-up questions there. When will Brevard's website be up and running? So I think it is right now, if not, is currently in the process of changing over. You'd have to ask Lois exactly where we are there, and I think, I think that is going to be live in the next day or so. Why does Column stand out versus other competitors in this tech space? Well, I like to think that we are the only public notice software company that is doing this. I think we like I said, we were hired a couple of years ago to come to Florida and build the official statewide database. There was a bill prior to HB 7035, called I think HB 35, that was mentioned that created a requirement that every single notice that's published in newspapers be uploaded to a central repository, and additionally introduced some more rigor around publication requirements, required papers to get circulation audits, and to provide a report at a statewide level out to the legislature. And so we saw an opportunity to come and really build the best thing out there for public notice here in Florida. And we're the only company doing that. And then once this bill passed, we're now, I think, the only company that's really focused on building software to help folks comply with these new regulations. So that, I'm of course biased, but to my knowledge, we are the only venture-backed software company with an exclusive focus on public notice that is currently working with multiple Florida counties to help facilitate compliance with these laws. Can you outline the benefits to this, such as publicly accessible display sites and searchable archives? What else could an entity get? So I'm just not sure what this is. So I think the benefits of if the question is about the benefits of creating a county website, I think that has to do with, you have to look at the cost that is currently going into the publication process in right now versus what it might look like to have your own website to publish these things. I think there's a workflow component of what is the actual process that goes into getting every single notice published, right? Where right now, things have to get sent back and forth to newspapers. There's a lot of printed documents that have to change hands. There's financial transactions that have to take place. And so, one of the benefits of our software, whether you want to continue publishing notices in papers versus having your own website, and is that our workflow software can facilitate a lot of that and automate a lot of the manual labor that goes into that process right now. And then every notice that is processed through our software does get onto that statewide database at floridapublicnotices.com, as well as onto a searchable display site that anyone can go and look at and is permanently archived. Okay, Dawn is here from Brevard County, and great, we are currently up and running. So if you go to brevardfl.gov, at the top of the page, there is a link to go and look at their public notices site, and that's where we're live.
I don't see any other questions, but I know people will have questions probably later. And let me just let everybody know that I saw in the chat that there was a problem with the link. We began recording this immediately. We will send out the slides and the raw link. And when I say raw, what we normally do is we'll have this video edited and then it'll be posted to our website probably in about a week. But you can go ahead and we'll provide you the raw link. So if you want to review it or share it with someone in your county, you're able to do that. And then we'll send you the slides as well. And I want to make sure that was it. No, there are a couple other questions and I'm happy to keep going, Jake and Alex. So can you see those?
Yeah, so the first one here is posting the notices to a statewide database still a legal requirement? Yes and no. For every notice that is submitted and printed in a newspaper, the law still requires that notice be uploaded to a statewide centralized database that's hosted and accessible at floridapublicnotices.com. And so any notice that you continue to publish in the newspaper will get uploaded to that database that we provide. I don't believe that requirement currently applies strictly to notices that are published on county websites. So there isn't an explicit requirement in the new law that notices published on government websites also be uploaded to the statewide database. Now, that's, we think, one of the benefits of our software, that notices that are published on county websites that we provide will be included in the statewide centralized repository, which not only provides Florida citizens with one central transparent place to view and access and search and subscribe to notices, but also feeds into an API that we can provide that data back to the state government, back to any county government, and having a real-time access to a stream of every single notice published in the state of Florida, whether in newspapers, on county websites, or however else they make their way into the public. And so that's something that we think just has a lot of value in the world, that there is a central repository for this really important information that includes everything from city ordinances and municipal meeting minutes to things like foreclosures and name changes and new business formation. That's part of the value that we see in this system, and why we got the company started, to try to make this public information system a lot more valuable. So we have a lot of sort of long-term plans for what we can do with that central resource once the more complete that it is. But to get back to the question, there is still a requirement that every printed notice be uploaded to the statewide site, and that doesn't apply to county websites, but something that we're happy to facilitate at no additional cost. Do we verify addresses? So I assume this is regarding addresses for citizens that would request either a printed affidavit or request mailed envelopes of notices that are published on the county website. And the short answer is yes, we can. If that's something the county would be interested in having as an intermediary step between a citizen signing up to receive mailed notices or requesting like a printed copy of an affidavit for something published on a county website, we can verify that address. Cool. I think cool. Any other questions? I think one thing that I just want to make sure that folks take away from this is that whether you choose to, whatever combination of publication processes you choose, whether it's 100% of your notices continuing to publish in the newspaper of record in your county, or the designation of a county website combined with continued publication of many notices in the paper, or solely that website, we can help facilitate that. Our software can be used to facilitate publication in any newspaper in Florida. And if your commission opts to designate a website as the place to submit notices for the county, we can help provide that. I think as we've worked with many of the newspapers in Florida, we've learned that they're very eager to work with many of you on finding a path forward here, because they'd like to retain as much of this business as they can, and view our software as a way for them to help be able to do that. So you might expect to get a pitch from them of, hey, you could use Column to kind of bundle publication in our paper on your website on the statewide database, and see if they can continue to be a service provider. So that's something that we've also been interested in trying to help facilitate and help provide. But overall, I think we're really excited by the road ahead in Florida. Pretty proud of the decision to move the company down here, and trying to do our best to help folks figure out the path forward with this new law.
Jake, there's a question. It's on the timestamp of 11:34. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not sure if you.
How do you avoid spamming of registrations? Also, what about mailing to foreign addresses? Can you purge the registration at a fixed period? Yes, we could. I think this has been something that we've been working consistently with both Brevard and now Bay County to try to figure out precisely what we want the flow for people signing up to receive mailed notices to be, and what the criteria that people need to meet in order to qualify to really receive those notices. Because I think they are keen to avoid a scenario where lots of people who aren't actually Brevard County citizens are signing up to receive notices, and in particular trying to prevent that mailed notice expense from getting out of control. And so we've talked through a lot of strategies and mechanisms that we might be able to put in place to prevent that from happening, including deduplicating of submissions and going through the registry periodically to make sure that that there aren't that this hasn't happened, and that we can keep that cost under control. So happy to talk one-on-one about some of the ways that we're planning to do that in the counties that have come on board so far. But it's definitely top of mind as we're having this conversation of saying, this is a component that we don't fully understand the impact of yet, and certainly has the potential to really impact the financial picture of how this works. So let's work together and figure out, what systems and processes we can put in place to make sure that doesn't happen.
Jake, maybe Brevard's the one that can answer this question, maybe Mr. Walker, but was there any discussion about the indirect cost savings on staff with Column coming on board? And I'm not sure if there is one, but I'm just talking about the physical processing of the paper and the notices and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I think you would certainly have to ask Lois and the folks at Brevard to get the precise numbers on the staffing resources and the cost associated there. There is a lot of whether you choose to build your own website or continue publishing all those notices in print, there is a lot of manual work that is automated by our software. Whether it's the back and forth with the newspaper that can, instead of being a bunch of emails and faxes and phone calls and snail mail, can just be a couple of clicks, or the submission process to the statewide site and the generation and signing and notarizing of an and potentially the mailing of like an affidavit certifying that notice actually ran on the county website. Those are all things that our software automates. I think that Brevard has at least one staffer that is going to be facilitating the publication process on behalf of the county, using Column to accept notices from municipalities and charter offices that are submitting them, and then also ensuring that notices that are published on the county website, are there and documented correctly. But exactly what how that breaks down in terms of financial picture is something you have to ask them for exact numbers on.
Okay, thank you. It looks like that's about it on the questions. We've been going for about 40 minutes. If anybody has questions of column, FAC is more than happy to connect you. I know Alex provided his contact information, and we are more than happy to make that connection. Alex, Jay, thank you so much for coming on. I kind of approached this as this cannot be a very exciting topic, but you, from a technical standpoint, you made it very interesting to me, and hopefully some of the information is of use for our counties. And as I mentioned, we will have all of this sent out to you, and then you can access it on our website probably within about a week. And once we do the post webinar editing. So with that, I just want to thank both of you and for the partnership, and keep up doing good work.
All righty. Thanks so much for having us, folks. This was great.
Thank you.
Take care.